What's fulfillment to you?
I just want to have like 8 to 10 kids and drink blood with my kids in the forest and go hunting. So if you attack the medical system, they will attack you.
Are they telling the truth about the COVID-19? Amazing, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast. You know what I'm about. I'm about entrepreneurship with the balance of health mixed with the chase for finances, and who better than Oscarvore to bring on. I just got introduced to Oscar from a friend of a friend, and I was scrolling to your page, and you've a very unique perspective and unique points of view on different things. So I'm enjoying like thinking about what questions I'm going to ask you, because they're just different than the general questions business conversations would have. First of all, nice to meet you, Oscar.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Oscar is from Brighton originally.
From the south of England.
100%. Yeah. I would love to know more about your journey, because I'm new to it as well. Because you're, how old are you right now?
In my mid-late 20s.
Okay, mid-late 20s. Amazing. Great. Tell us a bit about you, bro, because I'm very, very interested. Do you have the raw milk?
Of course, this is the signature. I'll just take a sip because this is it can get interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, sure. Basically, so I guess that what I'm doing now is kind of combining my interest in entrepreneurship, and then making a business from the thing that I'm most interested in, which is, or second most interested in, which is all about health.
Yeah.
And that started from me suffering some problems, and then discovering some interesting ways to fix my own problem, and then starting to share that with people, and people just naturally becoming interested and asking me, hey, I've got problems with my testosterone or my digestion, and it seems like you propose a way to fix it that is interesting. And then, that's how I started.
How did you get out of the UK? What was that like?
Getting out of the UK?
Yeah.
It kind of happened very, very easily. It was actually basically what happened was, it was the day before they did the full lockdown in England.
Okay.
So, and I didn't go back for like 3 years after that.
Of course.
And I got on the last train when they announced like we're shutting everything down, and I got on the last train, and that was from meeting people that actually wanted to buy a farm. So basically, I eat like raw meat. Is kind of very weird. Yeah. It was even more weird 4 years ago or 5 years ago when I started, because no one was doing it. Yeah. And I met with some guys that actually sold a business, so they were kind of business people that also ate raw meat. Yeah. And we found each other on Instagram. Okay. And they said, hey, we sold our company now for a big sum of money, and now we're going to buy a farm. And I just found out on like the last few days before the UK went completely shut down. And I was like, I need to get out of here and meet these people, So
so what was the plan? To go with them and do what?
We wanted to buy a farm and make a village.
Okay.
So my friend had a lot of money. He sold his company for a crazy sum of money, like 9 figures. And wow. He's very low key, so he did it kind of right, you could say. He did it in a low key way. Yeah. Doesn't even have social media or anything. And then we wanted to buy a farm, make a village, because it all kind of goes together. You want, once you get interested in like natural food, you realize that it's very difficult to obtain the natural food in living in the city. So then you say, well, I want to, this is things that I'm interested in, so I want to be closer to that, invest in that by creating it myself and stuff. And then the food kind of goes together with like the family, and it's kind of a pursuit of more simple, traditional kind of lifestyle.
There's a couple of things I want to go into there. First of all, where did the entrepreneurship side of you come into this?
Well, I mean, I kind of have the same kind of business mind, right? So you have like people that have more of a scientific kind of style of thinking, and my mind is always more in the practical and business style. So I've always been doing some kind of business since I was 14, selling turntables, selling chocolate in school. That's how it started, selling chocolate in school. Okay. And then, so I've always kind of been interested in that, and valuing, money and some aspects of material possessions. And then, that's kind of what I was doing until I got to like 19. And then I started to become really interested in all of the health stuff that I'm doing.
And I feel like that's a big catalyst that isn't talked about enough, is doing something that you truly enjoy. Because you obviously seem like you truly enjoy the health side of things. So how did you monetize that?
Well, it's interesting because, it's not, what I'm doing is definitely not the easiest. It's not me pressing the make money button. 100%. It's definitely more difficult. But you say, well, it might make it more difficult. You might lose some ease, let's say, even lose the amount of money I could make. Yeah. But in return, I get something else, which is I'm doing exactly what I love. It's like I'm genuinely interested in what I'm doing. And so that is worth even a lot more than money itself. 100%. And so, it's kind of, it's just from being so interested in it. It's like imagine you have like 2 plumbers, and one plumber is just there to pick up his paycheck and go. And you have the other plumber that's like genuinely fascinated in the pipes and all that stuff, and I guess I'm more like the second plumber, where I'm really passionate about what I'm doing and like really interested in it. for the art itself, and I guess making money from it is just like a byproduct essentially of being so fascinated by it.
And so the way you make money then is you work one-on-one with entrepreneurs to make their lifestyle more based on natural foods.
Yeah, so I mean, I have a few different business models. So the primary one has been working one-on-one with people to help them with usually people's suffering is usually correlated to people's level of motivation to change what they're doing is correlated to how much they're suffering. So if they have a specific health problem, specific skin condition, specific digestive issue, just a strong want to change their physical circumstances, that's usually a good fit for my program. And so, it's working with people that have that kind of motivation to make a physical change in their body. Like I said, usually some kind of low testosterone, digestion problem, skin problem, etc. And that's been the main way that I've been working with people, because I like that, because as opposed to just selling people some kind of course, because most people aren't even going to do it themselves. Especially what I do is very controversial, and it helps a lot to have someone to guide you through it, because it requires some amount of departing from what's normal.
And there's nothing out there that educates you on alternative healing at the end of the day, because what you have there, like the raw milk or the raw foods, or I guess even I'd imagine when it comes to skin diseases or whatever it is, that the whole goal is to make the body alkaline, I'd imagine.
It's a different mechanism, you could say, but I see what you mean. You're saying that it's definitely different to what the medical industry is telling you, right? So that's exactly that. So if you Google anything, if you go on ChatGPT, it's going to disagree with 90% of what I'm going to tell people to do, and so that requires a lot of bravery that most people don't have, or everyone around them is going to tell them, don't do what Oscar says to do. The doctor, your parents, everyone around you is going to say, don't do that. And you got to be brave, and you got to really understand it to actually take that leap of faith.
Would you say that because of the way the world is shifting right now against the, I guess, main powers or the monopolies of the world, where they just naturally want to go against the media, they naturally want to go against what they're being told, that you've seen a rise in interest in the alternative way of doing things in general? And then health is obviously an aspect of that as well.
Absolutely. So, the more they push veganism, the more carnivores you're going to get. And it's the same with this, right? The more they push the medical technology, the more people will become interested in natural life. The more you push AI, the more people will reject AI and say, I want to be outside in nature. So that's just a natural counter force that happens, like a natural balancing that happens. So in the case of my business, absolutely. When I started my business, I was certainly riding a big wave of interest in natural food. When I started eating raw eggs on Instagram, no one was eating raw eggs on Instagram, and when I started drinking milk, it was like, what is that? Is that just milk? And now everyone's drinking raw milk. Yeah, exactly. So it's just a natural balancing that happens. So the more that those things are pushed, the more people will be interested in the natural stuff. And I guess I'm there to say, if you want the natural stuff, there's no one better to learn from it, so.
And would you say then that kind of leads into a whole general thing of, if you have a brand, you should probably be polarizing, because if you're stuck in the middle and you don't have a polarizing view, you can't really build a loyal audience. Because I'd imagine your audience is extremely loyal to what you believe in, because it's so alternative from the point that they just buy into it because it's alternative from the point.
Yeah, I mean, of course, if you're just, it's kind of like, if you're the same as everyone else, then you don't stand out. And now that everyone's making lots of content and there's lots of noise, if you're not doing anything different, then why would anyone listen to you? It's not particularly different, So you have to kind of, well, not you have to, but people will just gravitate to the people that are different naturally, because that's what's interesting.
How do you harness that in your branding? Because I didn't get to see too much of your reels, but they seem to be polarizing in a positive. I agree with you fully. But I'd imagine a lot of people would get like pissed off, or like, what's this guy doing, or whatever it is. But do you feel like that actually is an advantage to you through your branding?
Of course, it definitely stands out, especially when I started 5 years ago. It was very different, eating raw eggs in a Lamborghini, stuff like that I was posting. It's very different. Yeah. But I never really tried, it just happened. It's what I am, right? And you people can pretend, but ultimately that won't last very long. The faking it until you make it.
What's the guy who faked the meat stuff?
Liver King.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
like, would you say he's an inauthentic version of who you truly are?
What? Well, no, I wouldn't compare myself to Liver King. But I think Liver King. The thing with Liver King is that he wasn't really embodying what he was saying. And obviously lying and having shame about taking steroids as he did was a big mistake. Yeah. And I guess there wasn't any substance behind there, So of course, I'm interested in health and physical health. I'm also very interested in psychology, and that's real substance, And I think Liver King, he kind of lacked that. His message was just good morning, primals, And I do that a little bit. Yeah. But it's like, okay, that's not going to last very long, right? And so there has to be some real substance, some real meat to what you're saying, and it has to be an interesting message that really helps people for it to be sustained. And Liver King wasn't very substantial in his message. That's why he didn't make it.
And what's separate to your message then? Like what's the substance that your message holds?
Well, I mean, it's substance just means like almost science, you can say,
okay.
like
Gotcha.
Actual information that truly help people. And interesting ideas that aren't necessarily common out there. That's what gets people's attention.
Do you believe that the COVID vaccines are what they said they were?
From
a natural health guy point of view, are they telling the truth about the COVID-19 shot?
I think, the medical industry believes strongly what they believe. So I don't believe that there's some sinister plan to make everyone sick.
Really?
I think that they fundamentally believe in what they're doing. It's like they pasteurize milk, and raw milk is very difficult to get. And I do not believe it's because it's about making everyone sick. I think it's not that sinister. It's really as simple as people really believe that bacteria is harmful, and so why would they sell raw milk? It's full of bacteria. Bacteria is bad. We cannot sell this product. And then obviously you also add that pasteurized milk is way more practical than raw milk. Then of course people are of course they would sell pasteurized milk. They don't even see a difference between raw and pasteurized, so they're just going to sell the pasteurized because it's more practical and it's safer. So all of those, all the medical industry beliefs about bacteria is, for me, it's not a sinister plan. It's just they really believe in the things that they're saying. They're very scared, essentially. And they act on the fear that they have.
So their belief is kind of more so based on their perspective rather than it being truly evil. It's just a perspective of what's right.
Well, everything from all the medical industry is very logical if you believe bacteria is harmful. It makes perfect sense, of course. And so everything that I do is very logical if you believe what I believe.
Yeah.
So it's just a different logic. The medical industry logic is bacteria is harmful.
Yeah.
My logic, bacteria is good. And so everything that I do is logical if you believe what I believe about bacteria. Everything that the pharmaceutical industry does is very logical if you believe that bacteria is going to cause illnesses, as they say.
Wow. I listened to a Sam Ovens podcast the other day, and he was talking about this polarization in the world with the For You pages, okay? And the For You pages being that people are only fed what people believe, right? And there's no other point of view. So, like, I think that kind of leads into the belief of, well, is the COVID shot purposefully a negative thing from people who made it? Well, it's like, we can view it as them being, I guess, wanting to harm us, but their point of view might be based off what their perspective of life is, or what their perspective of right and wrong is. So it's very, very hard to be able to judge that.
For me, it's just bacteria is bad, therefore we need to do things to protect us from bacteria. It's very logical. Very logical, and they really believe that. And you can say they're stronger in their belief, which means they're just more scared of bacteria. They have a lot of fear, and so everything they do is based on that.
It's a tough one because there's so many more natural cures, and you've seen this over the last centuries, that have been brought to light, but pharmaceutical companies are very, very quick to either someone disappeared, or they just shut these things down, or they buy them out, etc. So do they want a solution that's alternative to theirs, is a question.
Well, they have a system that works, and they have a business mind, maybe like you and myself, right? And they have a mind of, I want to make things work and have a nice system that works. And so they value money and they value systems. And this current system is great for that. It's great for money. It's great for having, it's a good business model, essentially. And why change it? Essentially, why do anything that disrupts this? Is working very well, and we don't want to change it. We also do believe in the products that we sell because we think that bacteria is harmful. And so it's a beautiful system. We're protecting people. It's a good business model. Nothing needs to change. Why would we change anything?
Yeah, it's a very interesting conversation because you can go down so many rabbit holes, which I don't really want to get dragged into right now.
But I think people often think that it's some kind of sinister game, and they want to believe those puppet masters and all that stuff. But it's really, I don't think it's that at all. It's just people are scared and they value money, and that's it. And so you put the two things together, you have the medical system.
I would agree with the puppet master's point of view, and I'll tell you why. Is because I believe that 99% of people below them believe they're doing the right thing because they've been through the college system and they've been through their workforce, their workplace for like tens of years.
Yeah.
And so they believe that what they're doing is right because they've been told what they're doing is right the whole time. But when it comes to people who have generationally come into the pharmaceutical industry, do they then know better than when these natural cures come up than to shut them down straight away? And it's like, well, if they truly wanted the best intent of mankind, would they put profits above, I guess, what's going to be the best cure? Because obviously they don't seek for what the best cure is. Obviously there's a cure out there for cancer, because if cancer exists, there's a cure for cancer. Like it's Darwin's law, I want to say, something like that.
Well, it's very simple. In my opinion, it's just that they value money and they have this nice system, and they believe in their own ideas about bacteria and what causes illnesses. And they just have it going, and it's working, and I don't want to change it, and I'm going to shut down anyone that threatens to change it, because this is working for me, and
That's fair.
I have to feed my family too. That's what they might be, that same idea that you might even feel. Sometimes I can have that feeling as well of like, I need my money. I want to protect my family and and so anyone that threatens me and my money, then I'm going to be aggressive towards them, because they're threatening a part of me. They maybe value money a lot or whatever. So I really think it's a lot of that, what I'm saying. Okay. And ultimately they can only control you if you're controllable in a way, right? Yeah. So it's only about yourself, and it's a lot of fear in that system, but it's a very smooth, it's a beautiful business model, and so why change it?
That's a great point of view. That like they have their system, you have your system, but it's like being open-minded enough as an individual to be able to make up your own mind about what's right and what's wrong. And I feel like that's what's missing nowadays.
Yeah, it's very threatening, and it's proposing, what I do is proposing a completely different style of life, and people don't want to change their system. It's working. They're feeding their family. They have a nice business model. That's it.
Are you in a relationship right now?
Situationships. On and off,
On and off.
Yeah. I'm not like married, or the equivalent of like marriage, let's say.
Okay, but are you in a relationship?
Not like a formal one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could it get there?
Sorry?
Could it get there with that one person?
I have a lot of options. I'll say that. I guess it's kind of funny. I'm interested in having many children. That's one of my ambitions, to have, 8, 10 kids, stuff like that. And my interest is in having children with a girl that has not suffered the consequences of the modern lifestyle. For example, if you see around us today, lots of people have very bad teeth. Yeah, it's a very sign, and a narrow jaw,
Yeah.
And that's a sign that they are degenerating. That is that each generation is progressively getting smaller. Their bones are not developing properly, and things like that. And my interest is in reversing that, which can only be done with nutrition. Okay. And so I'm interested in having children with a girl that actually is less down that line of like suffering with a narrow jaw. So that's kind of what I'm looking for.
Interesting. Yeah. How do you find that?
I have a few strategies. Okay. Strategies? It's just fine. It's a lot about. The people that have the best jaws are typically models. So
yeah,
that's a good place to start. If that's the thing that you're valuing.
So you're saying they should have a narrow jaw or shouldn't have a narrow jaw?
No, they should. Preferably, humans before eating a lot of modern foods. Yeah. Humans had much wider jaws. Okay. There was no need for a dentist, and so the dental industry was born from the narrowing of jaws that came from eating modern foods.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, but you do look for narrow faces?
No. I want a nice wide face. That's a sign of good health.
And so you don't look for models, or you do look for models?
No, models typically have. That's one of the characteristics of a model. They have those nice wide jaws. They have that facial symmetry, right? What's interesting is that what is attractive are things that are products of good health.
Okay.
And what is typically, let's say, less attractive is things that are unhealthy. And so we are kind of biologically programmed to be attracted to things that are healthy, and one of those examples would be like a nice wide jaw that is very functional.
Okay.
As opposed to a very narrow jaw, right? Some people, not you and me, but many people, they have horrendously narrow jaws that they even need to do surgery just to be able to breathe properly.
Gotcha.
So a narrow jaw is non-functional, and what's functional is actually beautiful. It's typical. That's kind of how it works.
And as a young man nowadays, how do you find a woman who you feel like is, I guess, the one worth marrying from your point of view?
It's more about yourself, really. And are you someone worth? I would always look at yourself first. Are you someone that is stable? Are you someone that has the things that you would desire from someone else? Because if you do not have those things yourself, you cannot demand it from anyone else. They will not even embody those things themselves. So it's only about yourself, and I think it largely just happens. Let's say as a result of embodying the things, good character traits that you might want. So yeah, if you're a man, if you're, you can kind of cringy, but if you're a man, your woman will be a woman, and if you're a woman, if you're angry and crying and not stable, then your woman will not behave like a woman, let's say, and the relationship wouldn't work. So I think the better you are, naturally you will gravitate towards having the right kind of people in your life, including the right kind of girl that you might want to have a family with. So you have it's all about yourself, and then there is some amount of like trying to, or putting yourself out there, you can say, and interacting with a certain number of people until you meet one that just kind of clicks
with you naturally,
whatever kind of reason. Yeah,
you definitely shouldn't go seeking. I know, like with my girlfriend, I met her in 2023 in October, but it was when I was working with Iman, and she came through one of the funnels
okay,
on WhatsApp, and she was like, "Oh, what's this event about? More information." I said, "Honey, you're getting no information." Like, I know. I said, "Welcome to the rescue," and which it was great that we met there, because I believe a lot in frequency and energy, and so if someone has similar belief points that are especially polarizing, like the event was based around the rescue from the system and all this sort of stuff, and she was involved in wanting to know more about that information. So for me, we instantly were on the same frequency, because she believed that she needed to get out of some sort of system that she was in, and I was someone who was already
took her out.
I took her out of the system, and so like we instantly were on the same wavelength.
Yeah,
and I feel like many guys, I guess, go seeking to find someone who's like them, but I feel like you should just focus on yourself. I guess it's kind of that analogy where you don't go chasing the butterfly around the garden, you just build the garden beautiful enough to where the butterflies just come to it. And I think as men, we should not seek, we should just become, and they'll come naturally to us.
For sure. I mean, if you want to attract the princess, you need the castle, and that doesn't mean a physical castle, but a mental castle, 100%. Most of all. But that's not to say that you can't do things like putting yourself out there in different forms. For example, you could do day game, or where you try and meet girls during the daytime, or like whatever. You can do
run clubs.
You can do whatever. You can do all kinds of activities with the goal of, let's say, meeting people. That's okay too. So I wouldn't say just like you can't just be in your room and isolated from the world. You have to go out there, and you can go out there in many different ways.
I think if you're a man, you should be dropping game quite often on the streets. Right. Like, you should just be taught, not even intentional, we should be in conversation with women as often as you can, just to be able to speak accordingly.
It's what most guys want. Most guys see a nice girl, and that's what they want her, but they're too afraid to go and talk to her, and that prevents them getting the thing that they want. Yeah. So I mean, if you want to talk to someone, whether it's a guy or a girl, you should have no fear in doing that. But most people, they have a little voice in their head that says, you're not okay, you're not going to make it. Yeah. And that prevents them getting the thing that they want. Yeah. And then they just get frustrated, and they don't fulfill essentially their life's potential.
And do you meditate?
A lot.
Yeah. What does that entail? Because I'm jealous. I feel like the one thing that my generation suffers with the most is we just can't focus. My focus ability is not high. Yeah. And so I can't really turn off, not that I can't. I haven't chosen to want to enough to turn off.
There you go.
There we go. There's no such thing as can't. So for someone, I guess, who meditates, there's two questions I want to ask. Number one is like, how do you meditate, and how should someone as a beginner meditate? And number two, like, when did you get into it, and what do you feel the benefits are?
I'll start with the second one. So I always, for a long time, when I discovered eating raw meat and eating raw food as I do now, 5 years ago, I said that this was the best thing I ever discovered. And then about 1 and a bit years ago, I really discovered meditation. And then I said, this is the best thing I've ever discovered. Okay. It's better than eating raw meat. And I don't say that lightly, raw meat is a big part of my life, but meditation is now a bigger part of my life in many ways. So for me, the main benefits that I've noticed is essentially you have all these kind of voice in your head. Like one of my clients, he described it as you have like a Spanish football commentator in your head all the time, and that all that noise really clouds you from what you really want. It's a lot of emotions, a lot of noise there, a lot of little voice says you're not going to make it. You need to do this, you need to do that. Yes. Anxieties, all that stuff. Yes. And so all of that noise, it clouds what you actually want, and it clouds you being kind of rational and acting based on what you truly want, as opposed to what other people tell you need to be doing, and what all these anxieties that you might have. And so that kind of translates to you being calmer, much more stable, and more content, more satisfied, essentially. And those are some of the main benefits that I noticed. Also translate a lot to relationships. You can say, meditation even increases your testosterone, not literally in the sense that it will increase your blood level testosterone, although it probably does. But it will give you the traits that are associated with someone that is high testosterone, stability, stoicism, being rational, non-attached.
Yeah.
Those are some of the traits that you can develop from just the practice of meditation. Now you're saying, how do you meditate? For me, the way that I started meditating, well, I first tried it maybe 6 or 7 years ago. You know, I think I read some kind of business guru talking about it. And so I think I just went on YouTube and I typed in meditation.
Yeah.
And maybe I tried it, and of course it doesn't work. You have the voice in your head is just racing. You're thinking about a million things, and then the timer goes off. It's been 15 minutes, and you're like, "What just happened? I just wasted 15 minutes of my time." So that's how I started. And then about 18 months ago or so, my friend sent me this one guided meditation, and it was the first time I ever did a guided meditation. And something about this one specific audio track, it just clicked in my head. It just worked immediately. And I guess it was just the right words, the right pacing. And it was just a perfect audio that he recorded himself. And once he sent me that, something about it was different. I was like, wow, this feels like it's working. And so I stuck with that for 3 days. And on day 3 of doing this audio track twice a day was when I realized it's really working. Like I was on the London Underground, and I remember being really stressed about something. I can't remember what exactly, but there was so much noise in my head, and there's obviously a lot of noise on the underground, that sound that's on the underground. And I remember I was just holding onto the bar, and I remember just like, instead of being like stressed about all these thoughts, I could just like see the thought in front of me, and I was like, why am I stressed? Like, what is this, all this crap in my head? Like, it's almost like I could push it away, and just like, I'm fine, basically. Like, I don't need to be thinking about those things. Or, I'm not like, that's not me, essentially, separating from all that noise in your head. And that was on day 3 of doing this. And I was like, wow, this is nuts, So if I was to say, how could you start? I would say you need a guided audio, because you need to learn, you have a few different options. You could start by just listening to nothing, because the essence of meditation is silence.
Yeah.
But for most people, they need to understand it a bit more. They need to kind of learn how to meditate. And so silence probably won't teach most people, or it would eventually, but most people won't stick to it long enough to actually learn. And so then the alternative would be then to use some kind of guided track that somewhat explains to you some of the things that I just said. The thoughts aren't yourself, and you might have a thought in your head, but you can just come back to just breathing and focusing on your breathing and things like that. So I'd say a guided meditation is probably the best track, the best path for most people, and that will get people the results that they want. So you need like a good guided meditation. And the thing is, a lot of guided meditations are very kind of vegan and hippie in their spirit. It's not really, it's kind of cringe. Yeah. And those never resonated with me. Yeah. So you need a good guided meditation that is, let's say, of the right spirit. So it's the right, just correct energy, essentially in how it's teaching it, and it's not cringe or anything like that. And that will get you there. So that's
morning or evening.
There's 2 mistakes that everyone makes with meditation. The first is that they just don't do it. They try it once and then, it didn't work for me. Or they say things like, I can just meditate while I'm in the sauna, or when I go in the cold plunge, I'm kind of meditating. It's like, that's just different ways of saying that you don't want to do it. And that's okay, but you don't need to fool yourself. So the first mistake is that people don't do it. And the second mistake is that they don't do it consistently enough. And the third mistake is that they don't do it long enough. So the key for me, I didn't get good results with meditation until I started doing at least 15 minutes, but twice a day. Morning and evening. And I found that the best time to do it is when you wake up, and around dinner time, you can say, because if you do it too late, if you do it too close to bed, you'll either say, I'm too tired to do it, or you'll just fall asleep. And if you fall asleep, you do not get the benefits of it. So the best time, and you need to do it long enough. Many people, they do 5-minute meditation, 10 minutes. That doesn't get you the results. You need to stay in there longer. And now I'm doing like 45 to 60 minutes twice a day.
You're capping.
Seriously. And if you told me I would be spending sometimes 2 hours a day meditating, I'd be like, what? Are you serious? Like it wouldn't even cross my mind that I could ever devote 2 hours of my time in a day to meditating. But once you understand the value of it, and once you experience the benefits, you'll find time to do it, because you understand how valuable this thing is.
Is meditation God?
Well, in my perspective, you are God, and God is just your unconscious mind. And so that's what you're doing in meditating. You're kind of cultivating your relationship to God, which is your relationship to parts of your mind. So that's how I see it. That's what all religious text tries to describe is man's relationship to God, which to me is just conscious relationship to unconscious.
With self.
Sorry?
So you don't believe there's a God, for example, that we should, I guess, worship?
That is, you are, like, God is in your mind.
But you believe we are God? Or
well,
he lives in our consciousness?
God is experiencing everything, life through us, essentially. And so your relationship to God is your relationship to your unconscious mind. And you can bring that conscious through meditation.
Interesting.
So that's when people say, develop your relationship to God, in silence by yourself. That's what you do in the meditation. It's the same as what praying is meant to be about.
In what way do you feel like you have to better your relationship with God, or like I'm trying to like get the point. Do you believe in God?
Absolutely.
Okay. Is it the same? Like, are we thinking of the same thing though right now?
Well, in a way, yes, right.
Okay.
I'm maybe I don't go with like the religious texts and all of those things, but although what I believe largely aligns with all of those things, but it's just a different way of looking at it. But yeah, absolutely, there is a God, but it's not. What happens is that people read the Bible or any other religious text, and they take it too literally, and that's why they say, "Oh, there's a man in the sky," and It's all nonsense. It's just here,
Interesting. Would you say then, if we were our own consciousness, that then who's to say what right and wrong is? Because anyone can just say that's my own consciousness. So like what I'm trying to say is, I would be a believer in the Bible and what the Bible says, for example, not 100% literally, because translation can be lost over time and there's context, but the Bible to me would set an example for what is right and what's wrong. And I believe if we only believe that we are our own God and our consciousness and our own consciousness, etc., well then where's the guidelines for someone who would do a negative thing to not say, well, I just tapped into my own consciousness?
I think if you cultivate your relationship to God and you're kind of a centered person that is not ruled by anger and all the cloud and the ideas in your head, Satan, I think you act in a way that would be congruent to self-respect firstly. And so when you respect yourself, then you don't really seek to harm others, treat others as you wish to be treated. You cultivate that yourself through the meditation, essentially. So it just is the product, the how behaving in a certain way that is, let's say, with morals and all that stuff, is just comes from meditation. Essentially, you will embody those things through the meditation itself. So instead of trying to learn it logically and have all these rules in your head, you don't need those rules, because you will just behave in a way that respects yourself and respects other people if you do the meditation.
Then that leads into like intuition, that's just basically your intuition, I think. And I feel like we often, more times than not, know what's right and what's wrong. Of course, if we're tapped into our actual highest consciousness power of ourselves. And I feel like right now in the entrepreneurial space, I can say with 100% confidence that people are over, I guess, informationalizing themselves. So they take information from this course or this course or this course or this course, and then they lose their own intuition because they're dealing with everybody else's levels of consciousness or information. And I had a conversation with some business guys last night, and I said, you guys are overcomplicating this so much. Like, listen to what your own actual intuition says, because they can't think for themselves anymore.
Right.
And so, like, I would like to say that I need to start meditating more, because I think you get more clarity and understanding, and that we know what we have to do, but we just need to actually be able to listen to ourselves more. And that would come with meditation.
Yeah, you would cultivate some of those character traits that you're talking about, and the ability not to... Well, what happens with religion for most people is that it gives them more rules and it controls them. And so religion isn't meant to do that. It's meant to liberate you. Yeah. And so you can get that liberation through meditation. And you can get it through religion, but most people don't. Yeah. They take it too literally. They have the institutionalized religion, which is the worst thing in the world, and nothing to do with what religion is really about. And just meditation is a way to get there that I've experienced to be extremely, extremely beneficial.
Yeah, my belief would be very, very similar to yours. I wouldn't believe in necessarily the religious man-made concepts, but I would believe in Jesus, for example. And I wouldn't say that we have to follow his rules and that we feel abided to do it. I just know that if we love him enough, we'd want to act in a certain way that would bring us more fulfillment anyway, if we were able to channel that level of consciousness within each other, like ourselves, if that makes sense. I have a really, really random question that I wrote down. What's an important question to ask as an entrepreneur on your first date?
On your first date?
Yeah. So you're on a first date with a girl. What's an important question you need to ask her to see if she's about?
Okay, well, I would always say don't think so much.
Okay.
And in a way, don't have pre-planned questions.
Okay.
Because that already says you're not in the moment and you're thinking about something.
Like that.
So I would say, in a way, don't have any questions.
Okay.
I will answer the question more directly, but I would say that, and have no thought for tomorrow, as it says in the Bible. But you could say, it's all about what you want, so what do you want? And you shouldn't even need to think about questions in a way. I mean, let's say I go on a date and I really enjoy, you can say dating or just meeting girls and understanding their psychology just for my own fun. And so if you're clear on what you want and you have no shame about it, then questions should just be flowing. Conversation should be flowing, and it should be very enjoyable. And if it's not, then why are you there?
It's not then why you're there. That's a very, very good point. I feel like most guys are too desperate to where they hang on to what's not meant to be. And so if you make who you are very, very abundantly clear, that'll make the relationship a lot more clear and able to be understood by her. And I guess you won't run into roadblocks later on in the relationship when you've changed because you didn't express your initial beliefs or who you truly are in the first date.
You don't need to try, just be, essentially. And that's kind of cringy spiritual advice, but it's very true, actually. 100%. And if you're trying, then you're not being, essentially. And so you need to just let go and have no shame. If you just want to have sex, then you can literally say that, and you can just be completely open, and you shouldn't necessarily care about the reaction.
Yes, it's an interesting point of view for sure. I think if that's your intentions and the expectations are clear, and she sits at the table, but then you both have the same intention at the end of the day, so there's no point in lying. Okay, so as an entrepreneur, I want to be able to balance my intense life with eating the correct food, staying in the right shape. I think entrepreneurs don't get to move enough because we're at the desk a lot as well. I suffer with that sometimes, not hitting my steps, for example. Is there a certain structure that you advise when you're working with entrepreneurs to get their meals planned in the right way, or a certain amount of foods they should be looking at for simplicity or something along them lines?
Well, what I say to people is that in our society, it's not necessarily easy to be healthy. I cannot go on Uber Eats and order really healthy foods for now. Maybe that will change. But right now, that is the case. And so if you want to actually have a very good routine and be healthy and source the right foods is a big one, and getting all the right foods, making sure that you have them when you finish them, etc. It requires a certain amount of effort, and that requires motivation. Now you can make that easier by having things like a maid, assistants, etc. And that's what I have, and that's what I like to use. So I'd say just use your resources to make your life easier with assistants to order things for you. But I would also, make it, and it shouldn't necessarily require so much effort if you really, really want it. So you have to get also very clear on the things that you want. I would say, use resources to order foods for you, and use maids to make things for you. A maid in any country is $20-$30 an hour to make things for you. Just get a maid, it's going to save you so much time. So that's what I like to tell. Obviously not everyone can do that necessarily, or not everyone wants to spend that money, but for more entrepreneurial types, that's what I suggest. You use maids, cleaning ladies. I have a cleaning lady. She makes certain recipes for me, and you have to put a little bit of effort in the beginning, but once it's rolling, that's amazing. I have a maid. She makes I drink a lot of different kinds of juices. She makes a lot of juices. She makes a lot of juices for me, and just use resources. It's think of it as like a company. It can also be a good perspective to put on it. Just in your company, you have people to do things for you, and you can treat it like that as well if you want to make it very practical and system focused. Yeah,
I guess if your end goal is strong enough and your reason why is strong enough to why you want to achieve whatever physical goal that is, I guess it makes sense to have whatever structure it is that your resources allow. And if that entails a maid, then happy days. I've never got a maid because I don't know enough about it to look into it. How much did you say you pay for a maid?
Well, it depends which country you're in, right? In America, I had a maid. When I lived in Miami, I had a maid. It was $20-$30 an hour. In Spain, when I'm in Spain for the summers, it's €10 an hour. It's basically free.
When do they come in? Are they always there? Or?
No. So I have a fixed schedule, 2 or 3 times a week.
Okay.
So the things that my maid does for me, I drink a lot of juice, cucumber juice specifically, because it's a very good way to hydrate, and it doesn't have too much sugar in it. So I drink a lot of cucumber juice. 1 kilo of cucumbers requires to make 1 kilo of cucumbers required to make about 1 liter of juice, and she has to peel it because I don't like the taste of the peel. It's also where all the plant toxins are in the peel. So twice a week she comes. She brings a 5 kilo box of cucumber, or maybe 4 to 5 kilos of cucumbers, and she peels the cucumbers and then makes the juice and then leaves.
Does she do the shopping also or not?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Damn, it seems like a good.
It's a great setup, and it's €10 an hour. I mean,
so what would you pay a month then for this maid, for example?
Well, it's 3 hours twice a week.
Not much.
Yeah, €60 a week times 4, €240.
Yeah.
To have a lot of cucumber juice on tap.
Yeah. Where did you, with that 9-figure entrepreneur at the very beginning, when you left Brighton, where did you go? Where was that?
Yeah, so in the beginning, my friends were setting up. We were looking at properties in Belgium initially, because that's where some of my friends are from. Then we went to Sweden, because Sweden, it was, I don't know exactly why we chose Sweden. We were just looking at places that were less immigrants and things like that. Yeah. And Sweden was South Sweden in the rural area was fitting the bill. And then we realized that Sweden, you can't do homeschooling. And that was part of our village plan, you can say. So we went to Denmark.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, but them Scandinavian countries are great, like architectural wise as well.
Mm-hmm.
But for you, when you left your hometown in the UK, Brighton, did it change your life by like the expansion of your mind when you were traveling and seeing these different things and this way of living that this 9-figure entrepreneur had? What was that mental shift? And for me, I always recommend to leave your hometown like as soon as you can. Mm-hmm. Would you also recommend the same?
Well, the thing is, I was very international from the beginning.
Okay.
My parents are from different countries.
Where are you
from? My dad's British, my mom's from Spain.
Okay.
So I lived in Brazil when I was younger for several years. So I've always been international, you see. So I can't speak for someone that is like a local guy who's never left the local scene, you can say. So I've always been very international because that's what my parents are like. They're also, let's say, expansive in those ways. So yeah, I can't say exactly what it's like to be local and then switch as an adult. So for me, I've always been international. I don't really know anything else actually. Okay. I sometimes get jealous of the local, and having that strong local culture. Yeah. It's funny, but yeah, I think the benefits are. It's kind of interesting because all my friends are from different countries, mostly, right? I don't have any British friends, close friends at least, and I guess when you go international, it's kind of like the internet. You get to pick people. You have a greater pool of options of people to hang out with, right? So maybe you have smarter people that have more the shared interest in you. They might not be in the same place as you. So it gives you a greater pool of options. And I guess, the reality is none of my friends are from my hometown, even my own country. So that's just how we've ended up together, just me and my close friends. And I think, you just have a greater pool of people. That's where maybe the smartest people, the people that you would get along best with, aren't necessarily just in your local area. Okay. So it's good to expand and have greater options. Of course, you can always go back to living in the hometown. It's not like if you leave your hometown, you're stuck. You can never go back. It's like it's just giving you new options and it's expanding in the physical world. So I think trying something new. It's like the Amish, right? The Amish, they live in like very small communities, and then when the kids are adults, they say leave for a year and then see if you want to come back after 1 year. And it's funny, most of the Amish actually do go back because they actually say, I've tried the world and it sucks. I want to go back to my little Amish village. Do the same for sure. I would tell anyone to do that.
Traveling internationally and having these clients all over the world, you've probably seen some, interesting or unique things. Is there any story you can share or what your most interesting, experience was with healing someone naturally with with your beliefs, I guess?
Yeah. There's one client in particular that for me was one of my favorite stories. Not necessarily the most crazy transformation, although it was pretty crazy, I'll tell you in a second, but it was just my favorite one because I had one client from California. He was diabetic and taking 1 million different supplements he was even taking medication for diabetes. And he was very overweight, maybe 240 pounds. So quite overweight. And he came to me. I think he just wanted to increase his testosterone, but obviously when I onboard someone, I always ask, what's your medical history? What's going on? What are you suffering with? What symptoms do you have? What conditions did the doctor say you have, etc. And so he sends me everything that he has. And I'm like, wow, okay, this is interesting. And I remember, and he said he had diabetes. And I said, well, I'm going to try something that I haven't necessarily tried before, but I'm confident it's going to work. Because I had read that Hippocrates, who's considered the father of Western medicine, he used to cure his patients with diabetes by them drinking only raw milk and no food for, I think it took about 2 weeks, he said. So I told this guy, I said, well, let's do not only raw milk, but let's do predominantly raw milk for a set period of time. Obviously, we can adapt if suddenly you're not feeling energized or anything. But let's just start like this and take it one day at a time. And let's come off all the pills, all the medications. And yeah, he started doing these raw milkshakes, which is raw milk, raw eggs, and honey, as like 80, even 90% of his diet. And he just stuck with it. I guess he started to feel very good very quickly. And he stuck with the raw milkshakes for months. And I think it took 2-3 months, and he was completely off the medication, blood sugar stable. He lost like 70 pounds. And like, I can maybe, if we're going to use this clip, I can put like a picture of his jaw. It was crazy. Like, he went from having a super, inflamed, water retained face, and his jaw was just like popping, completely popping. And it completely changed his life. He never went back to the pills, cured his diabetes, completely stable. And yeah, it was a crazy transformation. It was like taking someone that was so in the world of the medical industry and just saying, you're going to do raw milkshakes and we're going to fix all your conditions that are supposedly incurable or whatever. And it was completely gone. And it was incredible. And not only was it like a mental change, it was a real physical transformation of like 240 pounds to 170 pounds with a popping jaw. It was like, it was still my favorite transformation to this day.
And so I don't understand then why you wouldn't be more like, fuck the fucking system, basically. Because like, I was watching a Diary CEO podcast with a ex-federal agent or something along these lines. Mm-hmm. And she was talking essentially how when somebody, let's say, for example, says, I have anxiety or I have depression, mm-hmm. then they get put on these certain prescription drugs, and then they know to the date, I guess they study how people die, basically, and they know to the date when a person starts taking this pill, they're more likely to go into therapy at this stage of the thing, then they'll have to go on this new pill, and like they know for a fact, I guess, what brings them along the cycle and when they die and all this sort of stuff. Right. And so for you, who has a different solution to the problem that these people are going down, I don't understand why you're not more pissed off with like the system.
Well, I'm not pissed off about anything.
I guess because you make money from it. Yeah.
No. I guess just from what good would being angry do? Yeah. Because the medical system will treat you like anyone will treat you like you treat them. Yeah. So if you attack the medical system, they will attack you.
Yeah, that's not good.
And that's what's happened to many people. Yeah. Many conspiracies about people that have been, let's say, removed from attacking certain authority figures. And so don't attack people because you don't want to be attacked yourself. Or if you attack them, be ready. They're going to attack you. And it's what's funny is I saw this Paul Saladino video recently where he's giving his house tour. Mm-hmm. And throughout the video, he's making several jokes, which they're not really jokes, where he's saying, hey, look, I've got this dog here. He's going to protect me from Big Pharma, Hey, I've got these guns, just to protect me from Big Pharma. And he's like saying this throughout the video. And it's like, he's not joking. He's really scared because he feels like he's attacking the medical system. And so he feels like he's defending himself. He's scared, he's fundamentally scared. And that's a horrible place to be mentally. It really shows you what's happening in Paul Saladino's mind. It's really, I do not want to be part of that myself. And I completely understand it, and it's completely fine, and he can maybe change that. But I would say he's suffering a little bit there with that fear. The medical industry is based on fear, and I don't have that same fear. So there's nothing for me to attack them about. On the contrary, I completely understand the medical industry. It's based on fear. They value money. They have a system, and they like the system, and that's it. And I completely understand, And there's attacking them will not lead to anything good for me, or just I'll be attacked back, and I don't want to be attacked, so I'm not going to attack anyone else.
It's a good level of consciousness to just be, I guess, just focused on yourself and just be in your own way of doing things, and not necessarily have to go out of your way to bother other people. But if they align with what you do, then you work with them. Yeah,
so. You do not need to bring anyone down.
Yeah,
and that's how I see it. You don't need to put anyone down ever. And that's not to say you cannot offer feedback and criticisms. Yeah. But you'd never need to bring anyone down on your way up. Like it won't lead you to satisfaction.
100%. What's fulfillment to you?
Doing exactly what you want with no shame about it.
Okay. And where do you see yourself in the next 5-10 years time? Like what would your ideal life be?
So I met this quite rich guy recently, and he asked me, I asked him, what do you want to do? What's your ambitions? You have quite some money, and now what? and he said, I want to be a billionaire. You know, he started to explain a bit about his motivations and building a big company and selling it and being a billionaire. And then he asked me, and I was like, I thought about it for a second. I was like, I just want to have like 8 to 10 kids and drink blood with my kids in a forest and go hunting. Like, that's my ambitions, you know? So, and that's when someone says, what do you want to do? I'm like, that's what I'm attracted to, you know?
Okay.
And maybe money can help me facilitate that in terms of I can buy a bigger forest and things like that. But my real thing that I get excited about is not making money for money's sake, but rather
for passion,
family, kids, hunting. Those are like my interests.
Okay, that's very, very... I think most men are actually programmed like that. If they really take the time to ask themselves why are they striving for what they're striving for. I think a lot of guys in the online space are striving for other people's goals instead of their own.
Right.
I think if you really zoom out and you get into your own level of consciousness, you'll realize you want a lot less, or you'll be a lot happier with a lot less than you think you need.
You get lost in the money making. It happens all the time. You know, people say, I want to make money so I can buy this, I buy this, I buy this. But often they never buy anything because they're just making more and more money and they're not really realizing their money into anything physical. And they just get lost there and very unhappy.
Yeah, I agree. Is there any final, I guess, health tips that you would give? Because I don't know enough about this space, the health side of things.
I understand.
Is there any like kind of things that you would say to someone who's watching this who wouldn't know too much about this space?
Yeah, I mean, a simple way to start is just to, let's say, eat more animal foods. That's like level 0 is just like eat lots of animal products, preferably high quality. Yeah. And avoid the worst foods, which is anything processed, avoid chemicals, avoid heavy metals. I mean, that might even be too much for some people to start, to be honest, to just eat a lot of meat to start with. And that's like step 1. That's the food that will build your body up the most. And preferably don't cook it too much.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I have all the questions I have. I think you're a great guy.
Awesome.
I think your general message.
It was a good chat.
It's fantastic. And pleasure to meet you, bro.
Yeah,
thanks very much.